you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes?
And we got Eric in Arizona. How are you?
Matt, I'm doing pretty well. It's like paradise over here today. So
Is it? What's the weather like in Arizona?
I think, let me look here. We're at 82 degrees, perfectly blue skies. Just got through enjoying laying out, catching some rays. And so headed to go get something cool to drink now and enjoying the day.
Yeah, I think it was 82 here a week ago, and it will be again in a week. But we're having a slight cold snap this week. So
Yeah, I've been down to Austin before, and am actually looking forward to coming down there sometime within the next year. And it's an awesome city, so I'm sure you enjoy it.
I love it. My wife's not so much. It's a little too warm for her. But so what'd you have for us?
Well, I used to live in Hill Country, so down in the Kerrville area. I don't know if you know where that's at. Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful. But hey, wanted to give a call and ask. Do you remember? Did you ever used to watch Seinfeld?
On rare occasions, I wasn't like a regular viewer.
Is that right? You know who Kramer is, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. There was an episode where Kramer was taking karate. You didn't by chance see that, did you?
Yeah, with the little kid. He had a child in his class.
Exactly. Okay, so just to go ahead and set it up. Here's what's happening. Kramer's taking these karate classes, and he's inviting Jerry and Julie to come down and watch him do his testing, and he's talking about how he's dominating the class. And they're like, really? Wow, that's awesome. And they get on to his testing, and when they get to the class, they find out that the people that are in his class are all basically between 9 and 13 years old. And he's just, he's fighting these kids and dominating the class. Well, the reason that I bring that up is because Kramer was getting this big high out of, the fact that he was number one in the class. Mm-hmm. And it sort of reminded me of the opportunities that I've had to listen to a few of your shows. I haven't listened to a lot of your shows.
Yeah, I knew you were going this direction.
And you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I know that it's asinine because we take on anybody. We've had professional apologists on here, and I run around the country debating them, including Abdu Murray just this past week. And I'll debate William Lane Craig as soon as he stops being a coward.
And can I add that nobody on our program has any sort of degree in theology, has any sort of degree in philosophy, has any sort of debating history. Matt has just recently started debating because he's being asked. We don't have any. We're not professional.
And I haven't run around to anybody saying how I'm kicking the asses of all the people in the class either. So
no, you're right, and I'll give you all of that. And as a matter of fact, you know as well as I do, William Lane Craig will not debate you, and we all know why.
Because he's a coward.
I guess my point in saying that, and I don't want you to take my point wrong, my point is simply that it has the appearance, so many times, it can have the appearance to the listeners that your position is the right position.
It is.
And I'm just saying that it makes it a whole lot easier coming across that way when you're on a court that's your home, your home field, and you're bringing in guys that basically are it's like a beginning tennis player go up against Andre Agassi.
Well, thanks for that comparison, but it's also easier when you're right. William Lane Craig and the higher theologians and stuff that don't want to debate, they don't have any arguments that are any better than any that anybody has ever called in and presented. We've addressed every contemporary argument for the existence of God, and when people don't call in and present them, we've actually gone out of our way to present them for people. There's no better arguments out there, so it's not like,
Wait, I still have to address, I don't understand, I guess, the connection with Andre Agassi, because what is it, for example, let me just use myself. What is it in my background that makes you think that I am somehow a professional atheist?
You know what, I'm not, and don't take this offensively, I'm just not really that familiar with, I've only watched just a few shows. I'm just saying from the
what gives
I'm
me,
not necessarily addressing you, but
right.
Let me just say this.
What gives Matt any kind of an edge? What makes you think Matt is some kind of a professional, or that he somehow has?
Let me tell you, excellent question. Here's the reason why. Because 90% of the people who call in have probably never, at least a theist, have probably never studied theology and apologetics, and so Matt has fielded tons of questions, and he also is simply able to ask questions that may be apologetics 101, but the person who calls in doesn't know those answers.
Okay, well, shame on them for not studying their own religion.
Let me just say this. This is what I would like to do, Matt, if you're willing to. I'd like to go ahead and debate you.
Sure, when? I mean, do you have some way to arrange this?
How about right now?
I'll debate you on air. Well, no, because what I want to do is let me just say what we need to do is, in order to go ahead and debate, I would like to set it up where we have a formal procedure, and a significant part of that procedure needs to be cross-examination, and we'll go ahead and give time to make our points, and I'm willing to go ahead and have a few debates, and we can start the first debate out simply on the existence of God. Because when we finish that, then I would go ahead and build upon that foundation after I go ahead and...
There won't be a foundation. There won't be a foundation to build on. But where and when do you want to do this? Because it's not happening on the show.
Right. I guess if this is the reason you called, this would have been much better suited for an email. This is not a call.
But I mean,
topic.
It's a topic we can discuss.
But yeah, that's fine. I mean, if Matt wants to do this, that's fine. It's okay for you to invite Matt to debate, and it's fine if you guys debate. But this should have been requested in an email.
Okay, so we wouldn't be able to do this on the show, Matt?
No,
just so you know, I've had some previous experience debating, just so you know, so I'm familiar with the way the debate works. And I've debated some guys that you obviously know.
I don't care. It's one of those, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me if you'd never done it before, if you'd been doing it your entire life. When I went to this past debate this last Thursday, I didn't even bother to look up anything about the person I was debating until the day before the debate when I was in the airport, because it doesn't matter to me the person who's making the argument or what their credentials are. Their arguments stand or fall on their own merits. That's just the way it is. Now, the reason we can't do a formal structured debate on this show is because we've tried in the past to have really long calls, and it hurts the show. This is a call-in show, but I'm happy to debate, as long as it's not just us two sitting around coffee talking, which I've done before too, but I would prefer there be somebody to see it, because the chances of you changing my mind or me changing your mind are probably pretty slim. So it needs to be, you need to figure out when and where you want to do this, make it a deal. I'll talk about it on the show. We'll post it on Facebook, and we can do it. It's not like I've ducked anybody who's ever asked to debate.
Right.
Unlike William Lane Craig.
Yeah. But let me ask you, the formal debates that you've had, do you feel like you lost any of those debates?
No.
Is that right? And what would the opposing side say, the theist side?
Well, they would say I lost every one of them, probably.
Really? Okay.
Don't you think that that's the way most debates look?
Not the debates I've had.
From the standpoint of most... Oh, really?
Yeah. When I debated George Smith, you can go on the internet, and it says that it was very unsatisfying watching an atheist get trounced.
I said most. I didn't say all.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
You don't think that most debates, most people probably come out with an opinion in favor of the person that they had an opinion with when they walked in?
I do. I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
So we agree. So I don't know what the point about...
I'm just saying that I don't. I don't think that would be the case if you and I debated. But again,
so you think you're going to be converting atheists if we debate?
Do I think what?
So you don't think that'll be the case if we debate? So are you expecting to lose?
I do think that if we debated, when it was done, if a vote was taken, I think that they would say you lost the debate.
Okay. Well, if you want to have I don't really care about the votes. I don't really care about a win-loss thing, by the way. Most of the, when we went into this debate on Thursday, we had a discussion ahead of time. It's not so much about winning and losing. It's about presenting your case.
And did you have a vote at the end?
No, there was no vote at the end.
Okay.
Because it wasn't arranged. I didn't set any of that up, but I don't care either way. But if you want to have a vote at the end and stroke your ego out of it, that's fine. And none of it makes any difference. None of it makes one bit of difference to whether or not you're actually right. Now, if you'd like, it's 5:01. If you'd like to make a quick argument for the existence of God, a single point that we could maybe address on the show, apart from us just sitting here jousting back and forth about nothing, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'm going to go to another caller.
Sure. No, we can go through. We can run through some stuff real quick on the existence of God. I will just go ahead and give you some real quick points that I think demonstrate his existence, and you can tell me what you think about it.
Can
Fair enough.
you narrow it down to like one or two?
I'm going to narrow it down to 7 premises that'll prove the point. They're very quick. They're like brainless. I mean, they're so simple. I believe you'll agree with every one of them.
Sure. Okay, go ahead.
Okay?
I bet you're wrong.
We'll start with premise number 1. And premise number 1 is simply that something cannot come from nothing. I trust you accept that.
No, I don't.
Okay, so you're going to now let's go ahead and do this, Matt. If you're going to go ahead and you're going to reject it, I'm more than happy to have you reject it. But in order to do that, since you're so scientific and so reasonable, you're going to base everything you believe upon evidence. What I want you to do is, if I said to you, Matt, fire does not burn paper, you're going to go ahead and you're going to say, well, you know what, we got a billion examples where fire burns paper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you just said that something can come from nothing. I want you to go ahead and give me the scientific examples where something came from nothing. And I know you're not going to go to the Lawrence Krauss example, because you and I both know that when Lawrence Krauss talks about something coming from nothing, that he's talking about empty space with low level of energy. I did not say empty space and low level of energy. I said nothing. So if you're going to counter the point, simply go ahead and give me the reason and the scientific evidence where you have nothing and something has come from nothing. Can you give me one example where that happened?
Are you done now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said something cannot come from nothing, and you thought I would agree with you. And I'm not asserting that something can come from nothing. My position was that I do not necessarily accept that something cannot come from nothing. And
Okay,
I was,
now-
in fact,
now again,
I
you're
was
trying to be a
in.
reasonable
You
person
better
based on
let
what
me.
you believe upon
You
evidence.
better let me
I'm just
finish.
asking you, can you
You
go ahead
better
and give
let
the
me
listening audience
finish.
any evidence for that?
You better let me finish, or I'm going to hang up on you. Do you
Okay.
not understand the difference between I do not accept X and I think X is false? Do you not understand the difference?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what I said was I do not accept necessarily that something cannot come from nothing. I did not assert that something can come from nothing. I was going to go to the Lawrence Krauss example specifically so that we could actually have a discussion about what you mean by nothing, because what physicists mean by nothing is different from what other people mean by nothing. And I needed to do that for clarity.
Okay, so what I mean by nothing is non-existence.
Sure, and I still don't accept that is a truism. I accept that inductive reasoning would lead us to believe that that's most probably true, but we cannot assert absolutely that it is impossible for something to come from nothing, because there is no way to examine and test that.
Okay, so
are you agreeing with that?
okay, no, I don't. What I think is interesting.
Why don't you
I'm willing
agree
to
with
go
it?
ahead and agree with it, but as long as you're willing to agree that the evidence that we have indicates we have no positive evidence that shows that something comes from nothing.
Do we
Sure.
have an
Do you agree
example
with
of
that?
nothing?
But we don't have,
Okay.
as Tracie pointed out, we don't have an example of nothing from which
Okay,
to draw.
as long as you would agree with that, and not only that, but keep this in mind, Matt. If we assume that something can come from nothing, then all science goes out the window anyways.
We're not
because
assuming that.
Science is entirely based upon the law of cause and effect.
We're not
And so-
assuming that. We're not assuming. How many times do I have to explain this? We're not assuming that something can come from nothing. I'm saying that the simple assertion that it is impossible for something to come from nothing is a position that you have not actually justified. And if you just appeal to all of the evidence that we have available, you are making a huge argument from ignorance right off the beginning.
Because we don't have nothing available to examine.
Correct?
Okay.
Correct?
No, I don't think that is correct.
Well,
I think it's very possible for if you were going to go ahead and make the claim. It's sort of like when I say there's a God. Matt.
How do you prove?
When
How
I
do you
say that
prove?
there's a God?
How do you prove that something can't come from nothing?
Now, do you notice what you just did?
Yes,
You
I put the
just
burden of
asked the
proof
same
on your
question
damn claim.
that when a Christian calls in and says that there's God, you say, how can you go ahead and prove that God doesn't? When they call in and say, or you ask the question, how can you prove that God doesn't exist? It's not up to
Correct.
you to argue that God doesn't exist.
Correct.
I believe it's up to the Christian to prove God exists.
Correct.
So
And
in
it-
this case, it's not up.
Correct. And for the person who's asserting that something can't come from nothing, it is their responsibility to prove their case. Can you do that?
There you go. So can we accept premise 1 and I'll move to premise 2?
No. Can you demonstrate premise 1?
Premise 1 is demonstrated by the fact that the only example of anything that we have is that every effect has a cause. For something to come into existence, it can...
First of all, you changed all the language in there. But premise number 1 is something that needs to actually be demonstrated. And my question to you was actually, can you demonstrate it? And so far, the only thing you've offered is that, well, all the evidence that we have seems to point that direction, and we don't have any evidence that contradicts it. Well, that's really cool, and it's a good way to say that it's probably true that something can't come from nothing, but it is not an absolute.
What we have demonstrated.
Okay, let's do this. You know what, man? I'm happy to say it's probably true, because I think that the evidence sides with that.
Sure.
Point. So how about if we just say, you know what, it's probably true, and if you can figure out a way to contradict it, then we'll accept it.
No.
Well, I have something I just want to assert. What you're really asserting, and the thing that is demonstrable, is something can come from something. We don't have a nothing to see whether or not anything can come from it. So a claim that regards nothing is a useless claim. All what you're saying is we have a lot of examples of something coming from something. In fact, every example we have is something coming from something else. And I understand that. But to say that something can't come from nothing, you have to have a nothing. And I've never seen that, so I don't know even what that is.
And even though we might agree that it's probable as a matter of inductive reasoning, we don't just assume that it's true and continue on, because that is logic based on probability, and I'm talking about syllogistic logic.
Okay, so if we take Kant said, from nothing, nothing comes.
I don't care what Kant says any more than I cared what you said or what Captain Kirk says. As I said before, the arguments stand and fall on their own merits, not on the merits of the individual. So there's no point citing Kant because I think Kant was wrong there.
Yeah, really. Okay, again, what I want you to notice is when you say that you think he's wrong, I just want you to know you're putting yourself in the camp of those who are making claims, and you have absolutely, by your own testimony, you have no evidence whatsoever to make that claim, Matt.
No, it isn't a claim. Why is this so difficult for you? When you quoted Kant to say nothing from nothing, nothing comes, I don't agree with him. I don't necessarily think that he could sufficiently make that case, just as I don't think you can make the case that something comes from nothing. That's it.
I don't try to make. I think you misspoke. You said you don't think I can make the case that something comes from nothing. I don't think that.
Sorry, something doesn't come from nothing.
You do agree that as far as something coming from something, that's the only thing that makes sense.
Only because we don't have nothing.
Okay, but what you're telling me as a rational thinker that logically it makes sense that nothing can produce something.
No, I haven't said that at all. As a matter of fact, I've said we can't, and Tracie's pointed out twice now that we can't assess that because you don't have enough.
In other words, Matt, don't you think, though, I mean, I don't know why you'd resist this point so strongly, but don't you think at least that the strong preponderance of the evidence would support that something cannot come from nothing?
You've never examined nothing, so how can you make any assessment of it?
Hello? Okay, to say that you've never examined nothing,
right,
is I think simply logically ignoring the fact that for nothing to be able to do something is a logical absurdity.
Then you're being absurd when you.
But
you're talking about nothing as though it is something. So what I'm asking you're invoking it.
Nothing is non-existent. It's non-being.
What is that?
You can certainly imagine non-being. It's non-existent.
What is? Give me an example of something that is nothing that we have examined.
To go ahead and give an example of nothing, in order to give an example, I'd have to give you an example of something, which would sort of contradict.
Right, so what are we talking about? What are we talking about when you say nothing and you start making...
I just want to know, you know what, let's do this. Let's go ahead and assume that you're going to reject this point. Are you going to go ahead and you're going to go on record as saying that you believe something can come from nothing?
No, he has not said that.
No, sir, and if you twist my words one more time to make me say something that I most definitely did not say and have corrected you on multiple times, not only will I hang up on your ass, but you can forget debating because you're demonstrating an incredible amount of dishonesty. Do you get that?
No, I don't think it's dishonest at all, Matt.
You can email and formally request a debate once you figure out why it is that saying, I don't accept X is not the assertion that I think X is true,
And
which you accused me
yeah.
of multiple times.
Yeah, you made it very clear. You said repeatedly, I think at least on 3 occasions during that call, you said that is not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many more times you have to say that is not what I'm saying before this person would understand.
And if we
that's
do
not
a
what you're
debate,
saying.
I demand that there be a vote tally. Tool.